Hi, welcome to the third and CSS part of the course Developing Modern Web Platforms using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. My name is Farhad Eftekari and I'm the teacher of this course. Here you can see the course links where you can find the material of this course. And here are some typographical conventions that we use throughout the course. On the bottom of each slide you may encounter them. Make sure to understand them and get familiar with them. And here is also difficulty level indicator that you may encounter at the top of each slide. It depends on the student how deep they want to gain knowledge according to the material of the course. Some students would like to just get familiar with the principal material. Some would like to get to know more about the advanced material. And here are also slide frameworks where you can find the title, difficulty level indicator, and the slide number, tutorial video code. The content's going to be here, course name, section name, and those typographical conventions and icons that we got familiar with. Here are also content of this course. The content of this course has been divided to the following content, which is the following topics, which is understanding CSS, HTML and CSS are best friends forever, how CSS works, how to insert CSS in your web pages, CSS Selectors, CSS Rules Overlapping, CSS Rules Inheritance, mastering colors, styling text, working with fonts and typefaces, styling links, hover active focus on links, boxes, styling list, layouts, working with images and HTML5 layout elements, and then finally CSS frameworks and introduction to Bootstrap. By definition, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language and CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. You may see it as a joke now that you are the CSS to my HTML. At the end of this course you will know why, because we can explain it now somehow, that HTML by itself, it's not really gorgeous and beautiful, and CSS is what makes it beautiful and eye-catching. The websites that you see, all the colors, all the styles, they are the ones that by applying CSS rules you make those pages the way they are. So this is kind of a joke, but let's get started with the material of the joke and let's know how we can apply CSS rules in order to make more beautiful and eye-catching websites. To understand CSS, you have to know that CSS allows to create rules that specify how the content of an element should appear. For example, you can specify that the background of the page is cream, all paragraphs should appear in gray using the Arial typeface, or that all level 1 headings should be in blue italic times typeface. CSS is a style sheet language that describes the presentation of HTML or XML document. CSS describes how elements must be rendered on a screen. And also the key to understanding how CSS works is to imagine that there is an invisible box around every HTML element. So here you can see by imagining that invisible box, then you can think about the padding, border, margin, and these height and width of the box, and these concepts that also according to that box that you imagine. And now let's see why CSS has been created. HTML was never intended to contain tags for formatting web page. That was a very bad mistake from the providers of this language, the ones that come up with the standards of HTML language, by including font and the other CSS-like tags and elements on HTML, that they made it a huge mess for designers and developers to create web pages. Basically, HTML was created to describe the content of a web page. Like you insert H1 and P elements of HTML there. For instance, you place your headings, you place your paragraph there. And then, like I told you, when tags like font and color attributes were added to the HTML 3.2 specification, it starts as a nightmare for web developers. And then to solve these problems, WWC or W3C created CSS to somehow separate these principles and definitions from each other. And then at the result, CSS removed the style formatting from the HTML page. So here you can see together HTML and CSS are somehow separable concepts. And the purpose of CSS and HTML, here you can see this is a very nice and beautifully image that I found on the internet. So HTML is a structural layer of your web pages. You have your head, you have your body, you have your foot, and all the different elements that as a structural layer you can place in your web page. And then CSS represents your presentation layer. This is a totally nice example that you can see now. By CSS, you have already those structure ready for you, and then by applying CSS rules, you make your presentation layer more beautiful and eye-catching to your visitors. Now let's see how CSS works. CSS works by associating rules with HTML elements. These rules govern how the content of a specified element should be displayed. A CSS rule contains two parts, a selector and a declaration. Here you can see this H1 CSS rule. We have the selector, which indicates what is the element that this rule has to be applied with. And then we have the declaration of that rule. And here also you can see we have the property of that declaration and we have the value. Very simple, very easy to understand. So now you saw on the previous one, we have the selector and declaration. So you already met this HTML element before. You know this is the heading, this biggest heading element of HTML. And we have some declaration here. And here you can see all of these properties that you can assign some values to them. Very easy to know. It's like talking to you. You know, it's like a person that's talking to you. It's not like some programming languages that's really hard to understand. It's like a human person is like actually talking to you and tell you, can you please make the color of this heading red? And can you please use Arial font for this font of this heading one text of that heading one that you're using as an Arial font. So make sure to understand it, make sure to like it, because the more you somehow try to relate to it, the more you try to consider it as a easy thing to understand, the easier it's gonna get. Because like I told you, it's like somebody is talking to you and telling you applying these rules as a CSS rules and then apply on your HTML elements. Now here we have example. We have here index.html file. We already on the previous part of the course went through these elements. You know this decoration of doc type here, then the HTML tag, head tag, the elements inside of head tag that you can place, and then body tag, and then different HTML elements inside of a body tag. So here, this is the outcome of that after applying these styles here that later you're gonna see. So now let's somehow guess what happened here. We have this my heading here, which is here as a heading H1 element. There are some text here as a paragraph, and then we have H2. You notice that is a little bit smaller than H1, and then you have here and some more text. So something happened here. Those text as a heading H1 and H2 are red. So we already know for H1 and H2 we applied in CSS red color to them, and the size is also a bit bigger. And here you see in paragraph we have gray color. So now let's go and you can also guess what happened. And now let's see the styles.css. See, the body font family is Arial and Verdana. And then for H1 and H2, we use the color red. This is the hex code of the red. Later, we're gonna get familiar with it. And then for P element, which is paragraph, we use this gray color. This is the hex code for color gray that later I told you that we're gonna get familiar with. So we somehow predict what happened in CSS. So if you want to apply these rules, if imagine we don't have this outcome, we want to create something bad, then we have to somehow come up with these different declarations, selector of these HTML elements, the properties we're going to use, and then the value that we are looking forward to assign to those properties. Now let's try to open Atom. I want to create this html.htm file and the styles.cs here. All right. I'm going to create one file here. I name it index.htm, and also one more file. I'm gonna name it styles.css. All right. And now let's place this code here in these pages. Careful about these quotations, as I told you in the previous part of the course. Sometimes when copy pasting from Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, or Word, they mess up with the wrong quotation, and then the whole code will be messed up somehow. And then place the code for styles.css, and now I saved it, and let me open the file in the browser, and then let's see what will happen. Okay, here it is, exactly like the example we had. And now we have these two files that we can play with throughout the course, apply these rules and everything in CSS and HTML as well. All right, now let me change something. Here, for the color, I wanna make it blue. Let's see. There they are. You can also try to play a little bit with it and then see what are the changes that you can apply. Make sure to also save the files for yourself as a hand-on experience with every example that we go through. Now let's see how we can insert CSS declarations. There are three ways that we can insert CSS rules inside of our HTML pages. The first one is using external style sheets, like the previous example that I saved the file. And then we have inline style, and then we have internal style sheet as well. So here are each of them that we're gonna go through and make sure to understand them. Here, as external style sheet, you can see that we place this CSS file here inside of our head tag, because we already know in the previous part of the course that head tag is the first part of the page that is being loaded in our browsers. So here is the place that we want to load our style files, because first we want to load our style files and then show and render the rest of the page in the browser as well. So here with this line of the code that you're having here, and also in the example that we wrote and copied here, also we had that example. You can see that you can apply the CSS rules which we place in this external file here as well. We have the link element that can be used in an HTML document to tell the browser where to find the CSS file used to style the page. And then we have this href property that specifies the path to the CSS file here that you can see. All of those parent and child conventions that we somehow used in the previous part of the course going to be used here. If you place your style sheet inside of a folder, then you can properly link to that file as well, not just mentioning the file name. Although if it was like in the same folder, it can work, but you have to take care of this concept. And then we have type property here. This attribute specifies the type of the document being linked to. The value should be text /CSS when you want to insert an external style sheet. And then we have rel property, specifies the relationship between the HTML page and the file it is linked to. The value should be a style sheet when linking to a CSS file. And then we have internal style sheet. Here you can see inside of head tag, we place the actual declaration of CSS rules here. It's like instead of placing this line of the code, we are including this part of the code of the CSS file here as well, except we need to place them inside of this style tag here as well, and then close it like this here. Then the browser also understands this is a CSS declaration as well. Very simple to understand. Make sure to also do it by yourself. Let's try it. Let's try it here as this example that we already experienced here. Let me just open Atom, and instead of using the link here, I'm gonna use this style tag here. All right. Now I'm gonna copy paste all of this CSS rules here, and then I save the file. Make sure to save it and then refresh it. See, this is the same now. And when I open the page source, you can see that now the styles are being mentioned in the web page as well. But now let's get back to the previous example, and then I save it. And when I refresh the page, same, but when I look at the page source, you can see the file is being linked here, comparing to this example. All right. And now let's go through the third and the last way of inserting CSS rules. Here you can see you're assigning CSS rules directly to an element. So now let's try to assign one CSS rule. For instance, here in H1, I'm going to use a style tag here, and then I'm going to change the color into red. And now let's save it. Later we will talk about this overlapping of CSS rules, but now here you can see that the rules has been adjusted here in this page as well. So we are already included this CSS file, but here also I have this internal style for this H1 element as well. So there were three ways to include CSS files here, as you saw here. So there are some different advantages and disadvantages for each rule as well. For instance, if you have a single separate file for your styles, then the developers, web designers, and the ones that working with the CSS files need to all the time modify that file. But if you include your CSS rules inside of each page, imagine you have like many multiple pages for your website, and then for each of them you have to open your web page and apply those rules and modify them as well. So it depends on your case. Maybe you have a single page application. It's okay to insert those CSS rules and properties and values inside, but for like the websites having many pages, it's not a very logical method to do. But it's nice to know that we have all of these methods of inserting CSS inside of our web pages as well. And now let's talk about cascading order, because you notice that we have all of these rules all of these methods to apply rules. So some of them must have some priority over the other one. So what style will be used when there is more than one style specified for an HTML element? Just like this example that we went through. You know already in the styles file, we have some declaration for H1 and H2, but here, when I apply this inline styles, as a result, it turned out now the browser and this HTML tag is listening to the one that I inserted as the inline. So here are the priorities. The first priority is inline style, the second one is external and internal style sheets, and then the third one is browser default, because browsers also have some kind of a default declarations that they use if you don't declare anything, so they are like the least priority. And we already went through this example together to understand if we have multiple declaration, how is the priority. And we already described it, but I'm going to go through again. For internal, they are suitable for single page websites, and certain page requires certain CSS rules. For external CSS files, then they are easier for developers. All of your web pages can share the same style sheets, and they're gonna have faster loading time as well, because once the browser download your CSS file, it's gonna be cached there and it's gonna be used there. So you don't need to add that size to each of your pages in order to use their rules. You already have them once, and then when browser download it, it's going to apply to all of your pages. Now let's talk about CSS selectors. We need to first select an element in HTML and then apply style. This is how it works. And this is a very easy concept, but we're going to make sure that we fully going to understand that in order to apply those styles for our elements as well. So there are many different types of CSS selectors that allow you to target rules to specify elements in an HTML document. Here you can see we have element selector. We already went through that for selecting like H1 element and applying those rules to all of those elements. We have class selector, and then we have ID selector. And then we have universal selector, this star, and then this declaration inside of that. You can also include properties and values. It means apply these rules to all of the elements in that page. And then we have type selector, for instance, for H1, H2, those targeted element names will be applied based on the declaration that we include inside of here. And then we have class selectors. We can specify a class for different HTML elements and then assigning those class to specific elements as well as some sort of a category. For instance, imagine we have category of menu items, and then we have the category of galleries. We have the categories of products. For applying CSS rules, we want to assign a separate CSS rule for galleries, which are like these menu items and links, and then for products also applying different rules. So instead of using the name of each element, we use the class that we already defined for them. And then finally we have this ID selector. For instance, you have to assign a certain and unique ID to a specific HTML element and then apply those CSS rules to that exact ID. We also have some other selectors like child selector. Here you can see. So it means targets any A tag that are children of an LI tag element. And also we have descendant selector, which is this one. So it matches an element that is a descendant of another specified element. They are really interesting to play with, and you can also try to use them as well, but then also we will work with them together as well. Okay, now first of all, let me get back to this class selectors here and then the other ones as well. So let's get back here to the example that we had. Let's work with each of them and let's see how they work in real life somehow as well. I'm going to declare a universal declaration here. Alright, I'm going to make everything bold here, or even bigger than bold, bolder. Now let's see what happened. See, now the texts are a bit bigger because we applied to all the elements in this page that certain declaration. And here we already got familiar with this type selector when we apply some declaration for H1, H2, and P elements. And now let's specify a class for these paragraphs. I'm going to call it my text and then include it for the other paragraph as well. But then I also gonna include another paragraph, but not with this class, and just remove this class here. But I'm gonna here assign an ID to this specific paragraph. I'm gonna call it paragraph 1. Alright. Nothing has been changed here, so if I refresh it, except one more paragraph has been added here. To declare some rules to a class, you need to first enter dot and then the name of the class that you defined. This is how it works. I'm gonna change the color to black. Let's see what are the changes. Here you see that those paragraphs that has the class my text, now the text color is black. But here it stayed the same because this paragraph doesn't have that class name, which is my text. Here. But now let's apply some rules to that certain ID. You need to use hashtag and then the name of the ID. I'm gonna use the color yellow. This is a very awful coloring, but I just wanna show you how it works. See, now when I refresh it, you see that certain ID here, the paragraph with that certain paragraph 1 ID, now I was able to apply that yellow color CSS rule here to it. Very simple. And then for the others, you can also try it by yourself to see. Those 4 ones are like the major ones that you will have to use in order to apply those rules. And yeah, IDs has to be unique because it needs to point out to the specific ID. So if you are looking forward to apply to multiple elements, you need to use class. And of course, classes are not unique and you can use the same class on multiple elements. And interestingly, we can apply both of the ID concept and class concept to one single element. You may wonder why it may happen, because there may be some kind of declarations for CSS rules that you want to make it generalize and like apply to multiple elements, and for that same single ID we want to apply some more or somehow overwrite these properties and values for that certain ID as well. So let's see how it works here. Let's see if I also add the class my text here. You see that this last paragraph, it has the both class and ID declaration here. Now let's see, if I save it, of course it's going to be the same, because this ID declaration is somehow having more priority over class declaration. But now let's add some other properties to this single class to see how it works. I'm going to make it a bit bigger, and then you see that that paragraph gets this font size from my text class and then gets this yellow color from paragraph 1 declaration. So when I refresh it, you see that now these paragraph texts are much bigger, but this one also got bigger, but it has its own color. Very interesting. So this is the ID attribute and this is the class attribute. You already tried. So this is also a joke that the class is the one that you define me, ID, you are special, and then div is the one that somehow use as a container for different categories. So ID always has to be a special and unique, but class is the one that somehow apply to multiple elements some specific rules. And we already discussed the CSS rules overlapping, and we also went through with the example. So if the two selectors are identical, the latter of the two will take this CSS rules will be like taken into consideration for somehow being shown in the browser. And also we have this concept of CSS Rules Inheritance. So here you can see we have some properties and values in the body selector, but also we have this product class that the padding is inheriting from its somehow parent declaration and selector. So by mentioning this padding inherit, we mean that definitely use this padding declaration that for the parent element and declaration and selector you used. And now you can also try to see by yourself how it works. All right, now we got to a very interesting and very important topic, which is mastering colors in CSS. The color property allows you to specify the color of text inside an element. You can specify any color in CSS in one of three ways. We have RGB values, we have hex codes, we have color names. For RGB values, these express colors in terms of how much red, green, and blue are used to make it up. And here is the way that we have to define the property and value. We have RGB and then these numbers that later we will explain. And for hex codes, these are 6-digit codes that represent the amount of red, green, and blue in a color, preceded by a pound or hash sign. And here is also an example. And then we have color names that they are 147 predefined color names that are recognized by browsers. And here's also an example. Very easy to read for humans as well. And then we have properties in order to use as a property and then assigning those colors as their values. Here also you can see the color property sets the color of a text, background color specifies the background color of an element, opacity later we will explain, and then we have border color as well. And here are 16 HTML basic colors that you can see here, and then also if you search online you can see the full list of these color names as well. We already tried these colors like blue, red, and then the other one. Alright, now let's describe what are these RGB values. Each parameter in red, green, and blue defines the intensity of the color between 0 and 255. So here is a declaration that when it encounters, for instance, color and then RGB, it means that we are using this method in order to make that color. And then the first number would be the red intensity, the other one would be green, and then the last one would be blue. And here's also the example. So we can, let's play a little bit with it, and then for H1 and H2 color, we're going to use RGB. Let's try 255 and 255 and 255. So it means intensity of all of these three red, green, blue colors are the maximum. You can now predict that the color would be black for this H1 and H2. Let's refresh it. Oh, it's white. Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course it must be white, because if it was 0, it was black. So now let's change to 0. But then color white on top of a background white, the text will be invisible. But if you like right click on it, you will like find it. But now if I refresh it, then you can see it change to black. I guess this my heading already has an internal declaration. Yeah, there it is. I'm going to remove that. Alright, so now if I refresh it, both of this H1 and H2 elements will be black. This one and then this one. So now change this values a little bit. For instance, 100 here, 93 here, and 12 here. Let's see what we made up. Yeah, this color is somehow like olive. So now you can play with yourself and then see what are the results out of it. So we had this declaration, and then the first number was red, the other one was green, and the other one was blue. Alright, the other method that we can assign colors to elements is by using hex code. Here is an example of a hex code. So when you place this hashtag at the beginning, it understands that now we are using hex codes, and then also we have this red part, green part, blue part. So you may also search online about these base numbers and then changing from 2 base to 10 base and to 16 base. They are very interesting and beneficial concepts, but it's not in a scope of this course. It's somehow a very bit like principle of mathematical topics as well. But they are very interesting if you also search by yourself and find out more about it. But so far, just need to know that by assigning these values with these different parts of red, green, blue here, then we can also create those colors just like the previous example by using RGB colors as well. So here is also red again, because we have this 255 value here, and this value is also 0. Let's place this hex code here. For H1 and H2, I'm going to use FF. So it doesn't mean if it's capital or not capital, or lowercase on uppercase. And now when I save it, here you can see H1 and H2. If I refresh it, will be red. So now let's add some green here. I'm going to add like 50 here, and then see what's the combination of maximum red and a bit blue here. Here also a table with colors and their hex code as well. but there are examples online as well, and then you can also convert very easily hex code to RGB and then color names as well. So you already know that every color on the computer screen is created by mixing amounts of red, green, and blue. Here you can see this different combination of colors, and white is also the combination of like 255 green, 255 red, 255 blue. And if we don't place any colors, then the black would be the outcome. And also you can use colors, not just applying color for text, but also applying color for background as well. So here, let's see, we have this body tag, and then I'm gonna use this background color. Let's change it to aqua. And when I refresh it, you see now aqua color has been applied. And also for different elements, also you can use this background color as well. So here, let's see. I'm gonna apply the color like navy here. So this was background color property and assigning values. And you can also use those different methods that we got familiar with, not just by mentioning colors. So if I here just randomly add one C4, 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 it's gonna be gray, but let's see how strong is this gray here. So if I get back to the previous slide, you see here from 255, 255, and 255 for RGB to 000, if the values are the same in red, green, and blue, it's gonna be a shade of gray. So that's why I predicted that this value is gonna be gray. But if, like I told you, if you search online, then you're gonna get more familiar with these numbers and how you convert them and how you understand, like, somehow it's like a magic, and then you predict the colors, and it's very interesting. If you already work with Photoshop and these image tools and applications to work with colors, you may already be familiar with them, these hex codes and RGB codes as well. Alright, now let's get familiar with opacity. CSS3 introduces the opacity property, which allows you to specify the opacity of an element and any of its child elements. The value is a number between 0.0 and 1.0. So let's get back to this example that we had here for H1 and H2 elements. Here you see, if you refresh this page, here you see that we have this red, near red colors as a background. So I'm gonna declare this opacity property here, and I'm gonna place 0 or 1.0. So it means the opacity is like complete. But now if I reduce it a little bit, for instance, change it to 0.8, so like 80%, and then it faded a little bit. And now like 0.1, see, it's got a bit fade. So this is how it does here. And then if I get back to 1.0, so by default opacity is 1.0, and then you can see it's like without any fade or something. Alright, and then we have this border colors, which are also very beneficial property as well. We have different styles for borders. Here you can see in the file, in the presentation, we have solid, dash, dotted, double, and the other ones. And then also we can assign color, and the first one is top, the other one this part, the fourth one this part, and then the third one this part, and the fourth one on the left side as well. But if you don't declare values, then it's gonna have the default for the ones that you didn't define. But let's see in practice how they work. For instance, for paragraph, I'm gonna add this border style, I'm going to use solid here as well. And then for border color, you can use border color, or you can use left, right, top, button for each border as well. Red, blue, green, black. Let me save it. So here you see we have red, blue, green, and black. So you now understand the order of that. So the first one is top one, the second one is this right one, which is blue, and then we have the third one, green, which is the bottom one, and then we have black, which is the left one. So this is their order. It's a very beneficial and important concept, so make sure to understand the borders, especially when you're thinking about the elements as some sort of a box, and then these box around each element. So these borders also become very beneficial and important. And then also we have this HSL colors, which is hue, saturation, and lightness. We can also define as a property and values to them. And here also description of them as well. It's a bit more advanced regarding to the concept of colors, and in a very rare situation you encounter them, but make sure to also understand them. Here's also, as a joke here, you can see things aren't always black and white. So these are the hex color of black and white. So definitely make sure to at least memorize this hex code, which is also very easy to understand, because as you understood earlier, without using any color, the color would be black, and if you put all of the colors at their maximum level, then the output gonna be white. All right, and then we have the topic of styling text and their related properties. So here are some of CSS properties related to styling text. We have font family. You can assign a specific font to element. Then we have font size. You can assign size to that text. And then we have font weight for this bold, normal, bolder, and these concepts. So you already, if you go through this HTML part of the course, you may remember we were able to use that B and italic and underline elements, but now by understanding CSS, then you don't need to use them, and then you can also apply these CSS rules for your elements much more easily comparing to those applying those HTML elements. So make sure to separate the presentation level and a structural layer of your web pages separate by using HTML and CSS. That's the whole point of using and purpose of using CSS. And here also we have font style to declare italic or normal on underline. Alright, now that we have this example of body with some properties and some values, let's place them in a style file and then see how they work. We have this very simple HTML file here that you can see, very simple one containing just HTML tag, head tag, this CSS file here, and then body tag and some text here, as it is some text. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go and exactly copy paste this code to my CSS file. All right. And I'm gonna save it. Well, the browsers don't really care about the way you write it. You can just put in a single line or something. It's just for better readability of your code. So always make sure that you write them in a very nice order. All right, did I save it? Yes. And now let's open this file to see how it works. Okay. For some reason the style are not applied. We go to the page source. Let's open this file. Okay. Now you can see when I copy paste the code, some characters just got added that ruined the whole code for me. It's not visible here for some reasons, but here when I right click on my page here on Chrome and then choose view page source, here when I right click on my style, here I observe that some code, some special character accidentally got added. Maybe because of tab character, I don't know. But let's try to remove those characters. Let's see. I guess there was one also here. I'm gonna save it again. Let's refresh it. Okay, now it's fine as it's gonna be, as we want it to be. And now I'm gonna go to my page and just refresh. Oh, there it is. So now it's got applied somehow. That's good. That's good. All right. So let's see what were the properties and values that we assigned. Well, we set the font to Arial, and then we set the size to 12 pt, and the font weight is bold, and the font style is italic. Let's make it a bit bigger. And yeah, I'm gonna save it again. When I refresh, now it's much bigger. Okay, so very simple. Now all of the text that I write in my code, did I close it? Yes. Now if I write more text, even as a paragraph, let's just add one paragraph here, because this is underneath the text inside of the paragraph. Because it's inside of this HTML body tag, when this paragraph tag don't have any kind of style, it will get the style from its parent, which is body. Now I'm gonna save it, and then I'm gonna refresh it. Now you can see also the text inside of that paragraph element has the same style as the body. That's very interesting. All right, now let's move on. And now we have some more properties for styling text. Text transform, text decoration, letter spacing, word spacing. Very interesting and beneficial properties. And now we have also some other examples. Let's also apply them. Let's see them by example, like what's the purpose of them, how we can use them. Where are we? Oopsie, I got a hit. There we are. Before I show you that, I'm gonna also show you something else. When you select this and then go here, press the space, then you can see all the possible options that you can also select for the value of that property. That's also very interesting to see by yourself. For instance, you select one property, you just select a space and then see what are the choices. It will also suggest you very nice values, and then you can also by yourself try to test them to see how they work. All right, now let's see what we have done. Okay. Now we add some other text transform. You can see why they're not uppercase. Okay, let's see if we select the value right. Lowercase, uppercase. Yep. At least underline is working. All of the text has underline. Letter spacing is 0.9 em, got bigger, and then word spacing is also 3 em. You can see that the space between words are much bigger than the space between letters. It's because of this declaration that we assign these values there. Okay. And then we have text align, vertical align, text shadow, which are also self-explanatory by their name, but you need to also declare them by yourself. Let's see how you can work with them. That's a good example. And now here you can also see a table containing these common fonts that we have in operating systems pre-installed. So by using these fonts, we are sure that in the browser they're gonna be shown exactly like this size, and we don't need to import them to our pages. But if you're using any other fonts other than this table, then it's better to import those fonts to make sure that the user is also observing the exact font that you're looking for. Now let's talk a bit about font size. There are different ways to assign and define a font size. One of them is EM. The EM is a scalable unit that is used in web document media. An EM is equal to the current font size. For instance, if the font size of the document is 12 pt, 1 EM is equal to 12 pt. EMs are scalable in nature, so 2 EM would equal 24 pt, 0.5 EM would equal 6 pt, and the others. EMs are becoming increasingly popular in web documents due to scalability and their mobile device friendly nature. So the point is we assign one size as a default, and then 1 PM would be equal to that size, and then we can just assign like 0.1, 0.2, and then the size would be somehow calculated from this normal size. And then we have pixel, which is a bit more old-fashioned. Pixels are fixed size units that are used in a screen media, example, to be read on the computer screen. 1 pixel is equal to 1 dot on the computer screen, the smallest division of your screen's resolution. Many web designers are pixels unit in web documents in order to produce a pixel perfect representation of their site as it is rendered in the browser. One problem with the pixel unit is that it does not scale upward for visually impaired readers or downward to fit mobile devices. So we have EMS now, and we have pixels, and then we have points. Points are traditionally used in print media, anything that is to be printed on paper. 1 point is equal to 1 divided by 72 of an inch. Points are much like pixels in that they are fixed size units and cannot scale in size. And then the last is percent. The percent unit is much like the EM unit, save for a few fundamental differences. First and foremost, the current font size is equal to 100%. While using the percent unit, your text remains fully scalable for mobile devices and for accessibility. And here also a table which you can also have as an example. For instance, if you have like 12 pt font size, then 1 EM, you assign them to 1 EM, and then 100%. And then if you want to use any of these sizes, then this is the outcome of as a percent, pixel, or points. And as I told you before in that font tables, you may also include whatever font you're looking for, especially the fonts that you're sure that it's not in the operating system of the user. You can just easily use font face by actually pointing to a font file and then assign a name to it, and then later in your elements as a value of some properties like this font family, you may use those fonts. Here also you can see the reason that we have like several values as a font family here is because first the browser tries to load this file, and if it wasn't in the computer of the user, then tries the other one, and if it wasn't there, then tries the other one. So there are like some ways to make sure if your first priority is not there, then you somehow declare the second priority, and then don't let the default value of the browser take into place or something. And then we have the concept of link, hover, active, and focus for styling links. They are very practical, very beneficial. You can assign some colors to your links, and then you know that the link's gonna have some color. The visited links that the user already, you definitely encounter the situation that you went to the website, to a web page, and then you see some of the links are like have different kind of color because you already visited those pages. This is this visited color that you can assign to, and hover is the one that you go mouse over, and then you just the color of this link or visited link change to this hover color. And also we have active, which if someone like right click on your link, then they see this active color. But here is an example. Let's see if we are able to work with that. All right, I'm gonna copy paste these styles here on our page. I'm gonna save it. Oops, I closed it. All right, and now I'm gonna place one link here, as you still remember this link tag. Okay, and then I saved it. Let's visit this page. Okay, now let's see what happened here. Let's go to the colors and let's see here. All right, now the link color is blue, so it is blue. The visited would be black if I visit there and then come back to the page. Hover would be yellow, so now when I hover it, you can see it change to yellow. And if I right click on it, for a small second you see that it's red, and if I just hold right click, it will stay red. So this is active, how it works. Very simple. Make sure to also use it, and also you can see you can have this text declaration and everything. So for that, let's make it a bit more noticeable. I'm gonna make this red, the other one yellow, and then here we have underline, the other don't have, because on yellow it wasn't really noticeable, but here, not when I refresh it, here you can see it has underline, but when I put my mouse over it, the underline just gets disappear because this text decoration is now none. Very simple. So you can assign other properties as well. Very practical. Okay, but definitely make sure to go through it and see how it works by yourself. All right, now we have the concept of boxes. Are we missing anything? No. As I told you before, CSS treats its element, each HTML element, as if it lives in its own box. So control the dimensions of your boxes, create borders around boxes, set margins and paddings for boxes, and show and hide boxes. Here is an example. You can see that we have two different elements, div and p. And then here, when you assign these values, you can see that exactly like a box is being shown to you, because you're assigning this color as a background and then some size as a height and width, and then you can see that they are being shown like this as a two different box. Definitely try that and let's see how it works. Alright, here also some other properties. Now we got in a point that you are already familiar with many nice and fundamental elements in HTML and some very nice and practical concepts in CSS. So you can also try by yourself to see how these different properties work and how you can assign values to them. And also we have border, margin, padding that you can also use. Very interesting and practical. And here also some properties according to assigning border style, border size, and border color. We already worked with some examples before, but here are more properties that you can also use by yourself. Definitely try them. It's a very good example. And then we have padding properties and also margin properties. Margin is the space from top, right, bottom, or left that you can assign, and then if you have some text or other content inside of those boxes as there you can also declare, then you can use these margins for spacing. And also we can easily align content inside of our boxes. In this example you can see that we are assigning this text align here and these margins that you're also using in general paragraphs, declaration, or this class 1, as we already go through these classes and IDs. Here the reason is like these two paragraphs have different styles is because of this declaration. But it's nice to also try it by yourself to see you're able to show this to see this example. And also it's nice for you to see if you're able to work with these other properties. Sometimes you would like to hide some elements. You use this display property, and then you somehow allocate some kind of values to display property to make the box or that HTML element invisible. And also we have these different properties for lists that you can also assign some style for them as well. We already work with lists on the HTML part. Very practical and very beneficial HTML tags. And also for tables, you can use like the size to declare some size to them, or padding, and all these different properties that earlier we worked with them. This should be a mistake. I need to fix it. I don't recall any property name of the tables hover. But definitely make sure that you're gonna try them by yourself. This is a very good example. Now you have to have this essential fundamental knowledge for HTML and CSS. This is a great place for you to work it, and this is not a big deal. You're not going to be left alone or something. That's a great example to also see the examples on the internet and try to see how you can get the best out of these properties by assigning proper values. Alright, now that you can see here for forms elements, here are a standard form in a different browser. Here you can see in Chrome, Opera, Safari, Firefox, and Internet Explorer version 9, somehow some styles are different. There are default styles in these major browsers, and you can see even with them, like the way they are showing them are not exactly the same. So you need to always take this point into consideration, that default values may not be the one that you are looking for, or sometimes you check in just one browser and then you're fine with the look, but you have no idea other users in another browser may have like different kind of view of these elements that you're placing in your web page. So always try to test them in other major browsers at least. And now we have this position property, which is also very, very important and very beneficial. The position property specifies the type of positioning methods used for an element. And we have static, relative, fixed, and absolute. Now let's get familiar with each of them. Okay, the first one is position static. HTML elements are position static by default. So if you don't mention position static, the browser would assume it is static. Static position elements are not affected by the top, bottom, left, and right properties. An element with position static is not positioned in any special way. It is always positioned according to the normal flow of the page. So if you have different properties, different HTML tags, mentioning them by an order, the browser would place them in that exact order. So without any other consideration as a normal flow. And then we have position relative. An element with position relative is positioned relative to its normal position. Setting the top, right, bottom, and left properties of a relatively positioned element will cause it to be adjusted away from its normal position. Other content will not be adjusted to fit into any gap left by the element. So assume you have a HTML element and you assign position relative. So you may tell that, can I have this HTML tag 10 pixel to the right, 20 pixel to the left, or like 50% to the bottom? So the browser will get the static position, and then relatively to that, you can assign top, right, bottom according to that position. Okay, now the name here is wrong. I'm going to fix it. Now we have position fixed. An element with position fixed is positioned relative to the viewport, which means it's always staying in the same place even if the page is scrolled. The top, right, bottom, and left properties are used to position the element. A fixed element does not leave a gap in the page where it would normally have been located. So imagine you have this page here. You can assign one element to exactly be here. And if you scroll down the page, the element will stay here. Very practical in some points. For instance, you want to have some menu item here as some links all the time here on your page. So you can assign this position position fixed, that all the time those elements stay exact size based on the view of your HTML page. And then we have position absolute. An element with position absolute is positioned relative to the nearest position ancestor instead of position relative to the viewpoint like fixed. An absolute position element has no position ancestors. It uses the document body and move along with page scrolling. Alright, and now one thing which is very important also to layout is overlapping elements. So sometimes you have, based on using these different positions, there may be some overlaps, and then you may wonder, okay, which are the one that is like on top, which one is on the back? So we have a property zIndex that you can assign some value to them, and then the bigger they are, the more priority to be shown in the top of the other elements they have. So here it is. We can have it as an example. Let's just try to create two paragraphs. Let's see. We have this 1p, let's call it 1. We have the position absolute. Okay. Left is 0 pixel. Top is 0 pixel. So it means place this element here as absolute positioning, and then the size, the space from left and top is also 0 pixel. Let's also assign one background color because we want to see how it like being placed. The first one, let's have it as a yellow. Okay, and then let's just save the other one and then have blue as the color. And then we use the name too. And then here, let's have 2 elements. We have 1. First paragraph. And then second paragraph. And then here also 2. Okay. Let's see, everything is fine. Let's just try. Let's see. Oh, this one is okay. Now let's also let's first not assign any Z index. Let's see. Okay, now you see this is like the blue one being shown. Why? Because it was like being mentioned second, and then it's gonna go on top of the other one. Now let's assign this Z index property. For instance, let's assign it to 1. And let's also this one 1. So nothing really gonna happen because they have the same values. But now let's put this one 3. Now you see this first paragraph is on top of that, and then the remaining of the other paragraph gonna be shown. So we are now definitely sure that this yellow one, which has like higher number, is like in front of this other paragraph element. Very beneficial, very, very important. Definitely make sure that you use that. All right, now also float and clear property is also the thing that you can also try to see how they work. Now let's discuss fixed and liquid. We have fixed layout. Fixed width layout designs do not change size as the user increases or decreases the size of their browser window. Measurements tend to be given in pixels. And also we have liquid layout. Liquid layout designs stretch and contract as the user increase and decrease the size of the browser window. They tend to use percentages. So when you assign values to fixed, they are fixed as it is by their name, and the liquid for this responsive design, they are much more beneficial to use. And also you may include an image for background image property and then assign this value in order to use an image as a background image in your body or in other HTML element tags. And then you can also see background repeat, background attachment, background position, and also background as the other properties which are very related to assigning background to HTML elements. And now also you can easily assign styles to these HTML5 layouts in order to place them in proper order that you're looking for, in order to assign some size, padding, margin, and the other related properties, and assigning proper values to them. Before you publish your web pages on your website, it's really necessary to test if your pages and if your website can be rendered properly in all of these top browsers like Chrome, Internet Explorer, that nowadays they call it like Microsoft Edge, or Firefox, Mozilla Firefox. And there are many websites, many online tools that help you throughout this process in order to make sure all the elements are properly placed, all your styles are properly placed, and your loading speed and everything. If you are like somehow following some conventions that in some browsers they are not like allowed to or something, There are many tools, online tools, that you can get the best out of them and use them in order to make sure that your website, the design of your website, the structure of your website is properly placed, and it's going to be very beneficial for you in order to do that. Here are 4 different links that you can go through. Make yourself familiar with them, try to somehow analyze what are the services and features that they are giving you. It's really beneficial if you try them, and let's see what are the benefits of them. Now let's get familiar with CSS frameworks. Now that we have a principle and basic understanding over the CSS, this is a very great point for us to develop our knowledge in order to gain more about this CSS concept and how to use these CSS rules in order to make more appealing websites. On the other hand, there are many CSS frameworks that we can use in order to use their already created somehow libraries and framework and components in order to make eye-catching web pages. Before we try our best to create those components, then it's nice to get familiar with them, just to make sure that we are not doing redundant work. We are not creating something that is already there. They call it like we are reinventing the wheel. Now that we have these frameworks ready for us, now we have these components ready for us, it's nice to see what are the limits, what are the features, and then even in this beginning phase, we can also use them and create much more appealing websites and web pages as well. So now let's understand what is framework. It's a standardized set of concepts, practices, and criteria for dealing with a common type of problem, which can be used as a reference to help us approach and resolve new problems of a similar nature. In the world of web design, to give a more straightforward definition, a framework is defined as a package made up of a structure or files and folders of a standardized code, HTML, CSS, JavaScript documents, etc., which can be used to support the development of websites as a basis to start building a site. Now let's talk about layers a little bit. When you are creating a web page, a website, you have different kind of layers. You have this user interfaces, which is presentation layer or your front end, which you have some languages to use like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and there are many frameworks to use like Bootstrap, Foundation Tree, Grid Systems, and the others. And then you have application layer or your back end where you do the coding, where your logic and operation of the website stands there. So there may be like different languages like PHP, Python, Ruby, Java, or ASP.NET, and then you may also use different kind of frameworks like .NET frameworks, Symfony, Django, Ruby on Rails, Spring, and the others. And then also you have data layers where you store your information and data of your application there. If you have any like users and they have like some kind of a profile or something, you use these databases as your data layer as well. And then there's different kind of technologies like MySQL, MS SQL, PostSQL, NoSQL, and the other technologies. Here we focus on this part, which are the frameworks for your front end. And we're going to get familiar what are the frameworks, what are their benefits, and related concepts through that. So it's really nice to understand this different kind of layers and architecture of them and the purpose of them as well. Now let's see what are the criteria to choose the right framework. First of all is the speed of installation, because some of them are maybe like quite difficult in order to install and use. The others may be like quite easy to use, but all of them in their websites have a full structure and somehow tutorial in order to make you up and running and in order to enable you to use them on your web pages and website. And then we have the concept of easiness of understanding. Then they may be like different options in order to use them, which is also a point to consider. And then integration with other systems would also be important when you're using the right framework for yourself. And then the long-term support as well, because you want to use something that is somehow finalized. You don't want to use something which is new or just got into the market of these frameworks, because changing from one framework to the other requires sizable amount of time and effort and energy. But nowadays, it's not like 10 years ago. Nowadays, these frameworks are a bit more finalized, and many of them is already being used by big websites. So it's nice to select the proper one and get to know more about like the more major ones in order to select the one that somehow has a guaranteed future as well. Now let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of using these frameworks. First of all, for advantage is they speed up the mockup process as well, because you know the components, you know those kind of different components that you can place in your website, so you already can somehow finalize your mockups based on them. Your code will be clean and tidy because you're already using the libraries and the code that has been written for those frameworks, and you're just using them, so it's already there for you to use. And then there are solutions for common CSS problems. Thanks to the articles online, thanks to these problems that people are talking about, and then they're providing solutions for them as well, then this is a very important concept as well. And especially major ones are having this browser compatibility feature as well, which is quite nice. And then before they finalize somehow finalized version, they test it in different kind of browsers and make sure that their code function in all of these major browsers as well. And then there are some other benefits as well that you can also go through. And for disadvantages also, there may be some. For instance, mixes content and presentation, and then unused code leftovers or a slower learning curve comparing to the code that you already wrote by yourself, and you're like having the full understanding over every single line of the code that you already wrote, and then you don't learn to do it yourself. But it's up to you to decide, and nowadays it's being more popular and popular, and also the knowledge of using them is a very beneficial knowledge as well. Most of the people also in their CV, if you're the web developers, they state that, well, I work with this framework, I have this kind of knowledge for that framework. So it's also a nice knowledge to have and add in your CV. Now let's talk a little bit about the concept of Sass and less. Let's get familiar with preprocessing first. So preprocessing is a method of extending the feature set of a CSS by first writing the style sheets in a preprocessed language, then compiling the code to pure CSS syntax. And then let's get familiar with compile. What is compile? A compiler is a computer program that transfers source code written in a programming language into another computer language. All right, now that we got to know about them, so basically you write a code, and then the code as a preprocessed code, and then your code compile, and as an outcome it gives you the CSS rules as well. So Sass, which stands for Syntactically Awesome Style Sheets, is an extension of CSS, adding nested rules, variables, mixins, operators, selectors, inheritance, and more. It is translated to well-formatted standard CSS using the command line tool or web framework plugin. And less, which stands for write less, do more, which is a very promising name, less language provides the following mechanism: variables, nesting, mixins, operators, and functions, then converted into standard CSS via JavaScript on an application. So basically, you write all of those definitions, variables, functions, operators, nesting, and mixins, and then the compiler as an output gives you the CSS. Very beneficial, very interesting. It's getting more popular. we are just getting familiar with the whole concept. This is not the scope of this course, but having this introduction knowledge is also beneficial, and then later you can also dig deeper for this material as well for yourself. So here we have this SAS declaration here. You can see we have this LT green code here and then header, and then you defined it here, and also in less the way you defined it here, very similar somehow. And then here you can see that as a compiled CSS file, it gives you these lines of code. So you write the variables, you write the code there, and then it compiles and then gives you actual CSS file. And for comparison also, here is a chart that could be like helpful for you in order to see by yourself as well. But there are tons of articles online, and it could be very nice if you also dig deep and learn by yourself as well. So as I told you in the different parts of the code, the purpose of this code is not, there's not going to be an actual course for HTML, CSS, JavaScript to give you the whole thing, because they are ever changing. They are concepts that from one direction they can go to infinity. I cannot just cover everything, but the way that you gain knowledge is really important, to first understand the principles and then gain some knowledge about finding answer to your problems and questions that you may encounter, the topics that you may find interesting to find. So this principle and basic knowledge, introduction knowledge, is the only requirement for you to dig deeper in any part of this HTML, CSS, JavaScript languages. Here also it was really beneficial to understand SAS and less, just talk a bit about it, but I'm quite sure you can also find tons of articles online in order to gain more knowledge. And here also are some CSS frameworks that are like somehow more popular compared to the other ones. We're gonna discuss and get familiar with Bootstrap as an introduction to somehow understand what it does and what's the purpose of it and how we can install that. And also you can gain more information about the other frameworks as well by yourself. So let's get familiar with Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a sleek, intuitive, and powerful front-end framework for faster and easier web development. It uses a 12-column responsive grid system and features dozens of components, styles, and JavaScript plugins with basic glue bar display, typography, and link styles. Using the customizer, you can really make Bootstrap your own by adjusting variables, components, JavaScript plugins, and more. Expand Bootstrap by using a wealth of resources, including themes and interface building tools. Here is also the website. Let's just visit. Let's just go there and then see what is it. So here there's a website of Bootstrap, getbootstrap.com, and then you can get familiar with it, what it does, what are the purpose of it, which later we're gonna go through. And there are tons of not tons maybe, but there are like many articles and many links that also help you in order to use that, in order to install that and get more familiar with it. But for now, let's just understand the characteristic of Bootstrap. The first one is this preprocessors. Bootstrap ships with vanilla CSS, but the source code utilizes the two most popular CSS preprocessors that we already got familiar with, less and SAS. Quickly get started with precompiled CSS or build on the source. And then the whole purpose of Bootstrap was to make it usable for every device. So there's one framework, every device. Bootstrap easily and efficiently scales your website and applications with a single code base, from phones to tablet to desktops with CSS media queries. It was such a headache for web developers and web designers to create responsive design websites, to enable them to like their web pages and websites be shareable and like the users watch and go through the websites and web pages in every different devices, no matter what's the resolution, the size of like how many inch the size of the screen is. By using these frameworks, this headache has been cured. So by using this one framework for every device, then you make sure that your web page is being shown properly. And then it has full of features. With Bootstrap, you get extensive and beautiful documentation for common HTML elements, dozens of custom HTML and CSS components, and awesome jQuery plugins. By placing this code in your head tag of your web pages, and then you're somehow installing Bootstrap. As easy as it is. In the website also there are much more beneficial articles or tutorial in order to help you to install Bootstrap. And then we have different components in order to use. So by using these components, we're going to make sure that our web pages are more eye-catching and more beautiful. Let's go to the website again. Let's view some of the components. Like here, if you go to this components link, then there are many different components that you can enjoy. For instance, using these icons, many of them to use, and they're free to use. And these tooltips, helpers, these buttons that you can use. So if you want to create them by yourself, then you have to make sure you're writing proper code and you're creating these different sizes for your buttons. Many different components in order to use and enjoy your websites. And very neatly and briefly, in a very comprehensive way also, it's been explained here that you can also use, and it helps you to place them on your web pages and use them. Different kind of buttons, grouping buttons, very interesting components in order to use, colorful ones, and placing icons in your buttons and similar concepts. So it's really nice. And now that you have this principle knowledge, now this is a very perfect timing for you to go through this pre-made components and try to use them on your websites and web pages. By just applying them, your web pages and websites may look much more professional and eye-catching. All of these categories of components, and very useful. And then there's gonna be a course which we fully gonna cover Bootstrap, Introduction to Bootstrap as a 5-credit course. It's gonna come soon. And here are also some links that you can gain more knowledge related to some of the material of the course. And make sure to send us any feedback or suggestions, and if we had any mistakes in our tutorial videos or content or anywhere, make sure to report it to us. And always we welcome your ideas. So here it was the end of the actually third part of the course, which was the CSS part. I hope you had a wonderful class, and see you on the fourth part, which is JavaScript part. My name is Farhad Eftekhari, and good luck with your study and have fun.